Hello, and welcome to The Black Unconscious,
a mental health podcast about living, coping, and thriving while Black.
I'm Raquel Martin, a PhD candidate in medical and clinical psychology.
And I'm Dr. Justin Hopkins, a licensed clinical psychologist.
This podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a therapeutic relationship with a licensed therapist.
Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to The Black Unconscious. We are your hosts. I'm Raquel Martin.
And I am Dr. Justin Hopkins.
And today we are going to be talking about relationships. It's entitled, What's Love Got to Do with It? Thank you so much, Katie, for the title, because we were stuck forever. So thank you.
Yeah, super appreciated. We were thinking about a title for quite a while, and our dear friend Katie helped us out. So it's all about romance, intimacy, and relationships, guys. So really interesting topic. Where should we start, Raquel?
I think you were super jazzed about talking about this theory on how we find people and choose people.
Yes.
Justin does relationship therapy, so he's very excited about this topic.
Yeah, so I am
too, but not as much as he is.
Which is interesting because I think you were initially really excited, and now I think I am.
Yeah, I really just wanted to talk shit about relationships and like how men are terrible creatures, and sometimes women. And then you're like, let's be adults. And I'm like, fine, we'll be adults, but I'm still going to make some insults out there.
So one of the things that I think is really interesting is just like how we fall in love and who we fall in love with. You know, there are 7.6 billion people on the earth. And for those who are looking to get married and be in a relationship, right? Like you choose one person and there's...
For your first one.
But for your first one.
Yeah, because like, I mean... Don't think you have to be stuck in a relationship just because it's your first one.
Right. Yeah. And the divorce rate is real.
Yeah, because I don't feel like happy marriages break up. So if you have to feel like you have to go through a divorce, you'll find your next person.
Right. Well, I guess that also begs the question of how do you end up choosing a partner that is not for you, right? Like what goes into that, right? And so there are a lot of different things, right? All human beings long to be loved, accepted, and in relationship with one another. But how we choose a romantic relationship is actually based on some of our earliest relationships, right? Our earliest relationships teach us how to relate to one another, how we interpret love, how we relate to ourselves and our physical bodies as far as intimacy and sexual expressions. Our earliest relationships also tell us like what emotions are okay, what emotions are not okay. And those early relationships are, of course, those relationships that we have with our family, right? Like our parents.
Yes, our earliest relationship ever will always be like your parental relationship. And it can just be called caregiver relationship.
Right.
Because sometimes it's not the mom and the dad, right? Like it can be the aunt or the uncle or the, grandparent. So it just starts with your first caregiver relationship, like starts your whole entire attachment style.
Right.
Which I think we have to talk about in another episode too, because attachment style is a huge thing when it comes to relationships.
Right. That attachment style is about what kind, like how you develop intimacy and how you basically go about attaining closeness with the other person.
Yeah. And it's like every single aspect of like, and there's so many different kinds, but it basically stems from your first, caregiver relationship.
Absolutely. And so like those first relationships, they're the blueprint. And again, they teach us so much about ourselves and how we should respond to other people. And the part that I think I really want to focus on is like, it tells us who we should or should not be, what we can or cannot express, what feelings are or not okay. And we get those in very small or large messages. And with the things that are not okay, right, we learn how to repress those things because we all long to be in relationships. So we repress the things or get rid of the things or deny ourselves the things, the parts of ourselves that impede the relationship, or that aren't pleasing to the person that we're in relationship with, especially as children, needing your parents to survive. That's an important thing, to kind of like be a person that your parents would enjoy being around. So we learn how to repress things that receive negative messages from our parents. And they come in the form of things like when parents say things like, big boys don't cry, girls shouldn't get dirty, or in this family, we don't act like that. Don't touch yourself there. Like when children start to explore themselves sexually, and the messages that we get about our own physical bodies and sexual expression. things like, I never want to hear you say that again. All those things kind of tell a child, like, so there are things that, and there'll obviously be affirming things or positive things that a parent might tell a child, and they'll want to do more of that. But some of those other things that rub our parents the wrong way when they say, like, don't do that, we learn not to do that because we need our parents in order to survive. We want to be in a relationship and we want to love. So part of our experience of love is shaped by the things that our parents tell us not to do.
And also how we see what we see them do and what we don't see them do. Like if you, I don't know, I've been around a bunch of families, and sometimes I think it's interesting how I've never seen, like if you haven't seen parents or certain families like ever say they love each other or like show each other affection. And it's not like they're, that they, you're like, oh, okay, I understand that they love me and we all love each other. And it may not be a big deal because you get that aspect, but it's like, oh, I've just noticed I've never really heard you say that you love me, or I haven't, unless it's like a special occasion or something like that. And when Justin says like the aspect of repression, like some people may think, oh, well, I don't repress anything, or you're just not aware of it sometimes. Like it can take you being in a relationship or a poor relationship or getting into a new relationship or having someone show you that like you don't always know what you're repressing. Most of the time you don't. That's why that's the main reason why it's called The Black Unconscious, because the whole precipice of the show is the fact that there's so much stuff, so much trauma, so many things that are in us as a Black community that we repress and that are in our unconscious that impact everything that we do in every single way that we interact.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head. Like repression is almost always unconscious, which means we don't know it and we don't know that we don't know it, right? And so again, like going back to that initial part that we were talking about, like that desire to be in a relationship and to be loved and accepted, there's also a number of theories coming from several different disciplines, sociology, social psychology, a few others, that makes the claim, in addition to that desire to be in a relationship and that process that we use to maintain relationship by repressing the things that are unpleasing to the people that we want to be in a relationship with, in addition to that desire, we also have a longing, an unconscious longing to be whole. So the parts of ourselves that we put aside, we actually do long to we have an unconscious wish to reclaim the things that we repressed in order to maintain earlier relationships. And this is seen in a really interesting way. Like it is really uncanny. And Raquel, I know that you've seen this yourself. Like it is really, really uncanny how, and I said that statistic in the beginning, right, to give context, right? 7.6 billion people in the world. Somehow we choose a partner that has qualities of a particular parent.
Yeah, my husband is exactly like my dad.
Right?
Like, not exactly like my dad, but to the point where he's like way more mellow like my dad. Which is honestly most Black men anyway. Like in the relationship when it's like a man and a woman, like the man's normally the more mellow one who just wants to like chill and watch the game while the like wife is running around tripping. So like way more mellow, perfect balance to me. Like I think everyone when they meet my husband, they'll think he'll be like huge and social like me, but he's like the perfect balance because he's like, yeah, just let her talk because she's gonna talk, and then like I just respond when appropriate or like chill. But he's like way more chill, which is good for someone who's like, I tend to be more anxious about stuff. I need someone to tell me when to like sit down and like it's not that serious, like just chill out. So it's like, and that's how my dad is with my mom, like just chill out.
Right. So your dad actually like expresses and manages emotions in a similar way to that of your husband.
Yeah, because it's kind of like when people don't speak up very often, when people don't talk very often socially, when they do say something, you're like, oh, I need to listen because this is like some serious stuff. Like if I talk a lot, so it's like, most of the stuff she says makes sense, but like sometimes you can just catch her when she's talking. But if it's someone like my dad, he never really makes preferences he doesn't have state preferences on most things, or he doesn't really like not care, but he's not really picky on most things. So when he makes when he says something that he wants, it's like, oh, well, I mean, it's the one time he says something, this is clearly what's going to happen. Because he doesn't really, I don't want to say he doesn't care because that seems like dismissive, but he's not picky on most stuff. It's just like, if you don't care either way, if you're fine with either way, then we're going to choose the person who does care. Like if it's between me and you and you're like, I don't care, all right, we do it my way because I care.
Right.
So like
right. Right.
It's kind of that way.
And I'm willing to bet, like, all of those little, like, nuances and subtle, like, details about those qualities, you didn't know all of those things when you first fell in love with Brandon, right? Like, you kind of learned them, like, as you, like, and that's this idea of, like, attraction and love. Like, it's so complicated and layered, like, and it's really fascinating. It has almost this mystical feel of how we end up really choosing partners and discovering things about them that really, really do parallel that of our parents. And even people who, there are certain qualities about a parent that they really consciously dislike and are intentional in their conscious mind to pick a partner that doesn't have those qualities. For example, someone who grows up with an alcoholic father or mother, right, really would may decide that they really only want to be with a partner that does not drink, but may find out 2 years into the marriage that this person has a hard time limiting their intake when they do decide to have, like, wine with dinner.
Or
like
they can have an addictive personality towards something else.
Sure, in other ways.
Like it could be like it's not specifically alcohol, because they may actively decide, like, that's not what I want. But then it could be, they just have an addictive personality towards something else. It could be like they just can't limit their time with certain things. It could be social media. It could be, I don't know, gambling. It can be like anything. And it's just like you don't really you don't know where the trait came from.
So it's so interesting how that happens. And I think what we do, right, is when we're choosing a partner, part of that choice is an expression of our wish of an unconscious wish to do certain things, feel certain things, and be certain things that we could not before through the partner that we choose. For example, right? Not for ourselves, but through the partner that we choose, through proximity of them. For example, someone who grows up with a depressed mother learns how to repress their own needs so they can care for their mother. If you think about it, as a child, you need your mother's love in order to survive. A depressed mother has trouble expressing that love. Therefore, the child's survival is in jeopardy. The child then learns how to care for the mother so the mother can be better at loving the child, and so that the child can survive by accessing the mother's love. But the child learns how to do that by repressing their own needs and focusing on the needs of the mother. So someone who grew up with that depressed mother learns how to access their own needs through another person. So they may enter a relationship they experience love by taking care of other people and putting aside their own feelings. They've learned how to love by not speaking up about the things that they need, not expressing their preference, not living out loud, but living quietly so that they can make space for other people's emotional needs and take care of them. So that person will enter into a relationship and fall in love with people where they feel like they can access the needs that they were never allowed to have, access the emotions that they were never allowed to express through their partner. So that person is actually more inclined to choose a partner that may struggle managing their own emotions, that may feel sad or depressed at times, and that may need the emotional support that child actually had to provide for their mother.
Yeah, and it can go both. It can go another way of, like, you have an insecure attachment and you just feel the need that you don't want to be in a relationship with anyone. But I think it also can also go so that, like, what you're describing is basically like being parentified, which is like parentification, which I think a lot of people have experienced, and it's basically a role reversal. So it's like a distortion of boundaries. It's a role reversal when it comes to, like, the hierarchy with a parent-child relationship, right?
Where
so,
the
like,
child is the one who's
the child is the one taking care of it,
taking care of and being on top of things.
Yeah, so it like, and you can see that in, like, a bunch of relationships. Because when I think of it, I think of the ways that I see it a lot when I deal with children in community mental health, where they do have to fend for themselves very often, and it might be that it's not that the parent isn't present. It could be that the parent is working like 3 or 4 jobs to make sure that they're able to have a house and stuff like that. So the child has to take on so many roles to the extent where the parent is doing the best that they can, but they do end up taking more responsibilities than they should, like cooking and cleaning and watching their younger siblings, which is where it comes into a lot. and you end up being like a caretaker. Like you may notice that you have certain friends and people who are just so used to, like, you call them like, oh, that's just the mom of the group. They just step into that position. And that's something that they learned since they were younger. Like it could be something that makes them more comfortable. They're more comfortable when their hands are busy. They're more comfortable when they're taking care of other people. And I'll also state that, like, when I do notice with children or teens or like people in transitional adulthood, is like it's very comfortable to take care of other people because the focus is off of you, and you're not really taking the time to see what's going on with yourself. And then weeks and months pass by and you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror because you're just exhausted, or you have a breakdown. Like, because breakdowns are more, I don't want to say it's like, I think it's possible to have many breakdowns and things like that. Like, I don't want to describe it as snapping, but it's prevalent to just like not recognize yourself. And you get to a point where you've been focusing on so many other things that you don't recognize what you're doing with your own self. You're not focusing on your own life. And I feel like when you're focusing on someone else and taking care of them, you're not focusing on taking care of yourself. And then you lose yourself in that relationship. And then when the relationship ends, you lose yourself because you put so much time and energy. And I think that's why so many people hold on to these relationships, because I forget who said this quote, but it's like, I think a lot of people have a tendency of spending so much time on a bad decision or a mistake because it's so hard for people to let go of mistakes, and so hard for people to let go of bad decisions because they took so much time making it. So you're in that 2 or 3 year relationship and you can't step away from it because it's 2 or 3 years out of your life. And you're like, I know I should have broke up with him years ago, but now I'm already in the relationship. So you can't even let it go because you took so much time making the mistake you can't imagine. So I just think people need to think more about, like, don't hold on to a mistake just because you took so much time making it. You still have so much time in your life to go. And I think being parentified and also having poor relationships as a child can kind of bring that back into why it's so hard for you to not only maintain good relationships with partners, but also friends and also family members. And it's in question in that whole aspect. Yeah.
That was really well said. I had two associations. One is that no expression or experience of love is perfect. Every single expression of love comes with an experience of love, an idea of love, comes with the imperfections of humanity, right? That is the tragedy of human life, that all humans are imperfect, and no matter how amazing your parents are, no matter how amazing the partner is that you choose, there will be things that are not 100% perfect, and those imperfections have impact and tell us, like, again, who we can and cannot be. The second association I had was that it's 9 out of 10 times. I really, really, really want to say 10 out of 10, but I know that absolutes always fail.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to hear what you're going to say with 9, like, because this has to be serious. Because you never generalize. I
do not make sweeping generalizations, so this is kind of an exception. But 9 out of 10 times, when a couple comes to me for couples therapy, I always ask them in that first session, what attracted you to your partner? Because it is the other side of the coin of that attraction, right? That is basically the root for the problem in the relationship. For example, here's a stereotype, like, in a heterosexual relationship, a woman who describes, this is a scenario that I've seen many times, a man who is decisive and planful, or is good at managing certain things in their lives, including money, et cetera, et cetera.
Where are these men? This is like what you hear women saying, like, he's a good planner, he has common sense. That's a thing.
Well, the other side of that, though, is that
no shade to my husband. I don't want any problems. Please don't lock the door.
We're gonna get some hate mail from Brandon. We're gonna get some hate mail for sure.
No, you're amazing. Okay, yeah.
But right, but that same husband also doesn't include her in the decision making, invalidates her opinions because he feels like he has it all under control. It's the same side of the other coin, right? So, and that can happen, and I don't mean to sexualize or make this gender specific, because that I've seen it both ways, like in both men and women, and lesbian couples and gay couples. Like you see different dynamics across the gender spectrum and expression of sexual orientation.
So it's more just like one person in the relationship is doing that. So it's not really like male or female. You're more saying it's more so the person who has that role.
Yeah.
So even though they're good at one aspect, they're also like invalidating in another aspect? Because I think it's always good to
Sure,
take like
yeah.
the gender out of it, because you work with all
that's a
kinds
good
of
point.
couples.
That's a good point. I guess I was just saying that because like I've seen that pattern particularly between heterosexual couples, and the man exhibiting that kind of trait but invalidating, because like, you know, being in charge and organized in one area as a man does lead you to invalidate the woman in some areas at times because of all of the power and privileges that are endowed to men versus women. It kind of lends itself to that. So
do you
I
see
think,
more of a balance though? Like, do you see, like, with the time that you work with couples, do you see more people splitting up responsibilities like that, or do you see more like both of them?
Yeah.
Like, because that seems like a deep split, you know, right? Like, to do it that way. Do you see that often?
That's a really good point. Like I've actually seen couples in our generation, like millennial couples, who have displayed those kind of splits. But it is more common to see like more egalitarian relationships where the roles are equally shared, the responsibilities are equally shared, and there's no strong, rigid expectation that a woman do these stereotypical like domestic things around the house, and the man just does like XYZ at his job. Like you don't see as much of that anymore because it's also not realistic in terms of how our society is set up.
Yeah. How do you feel about that though?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I like it that way. I really do. Like I think at bottom, right, relationships are about understanding the other person and the other person understanding you. Couples therapy there's a simple formula to couples therapy when there's no affair involved. That's my only caveat. When there's no affair or when there's no complete breach of trust.
Oh, so that's when all bets are off though.
Yeah.
Like that's how you see it. Like it's like, all right, like now, because it changes your dynamic as a clinician, right? Because you have to look at the fact that this trust was severed.
Yes.
So the relationship is not the same relationship it was before that.
Yes.
So you can't look at it the same way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. That makes sense.
Right. If there's an affair or any sort of boundary violation.
Because it doesn't have to be just, what are other examples that you would give of like a huge boundary violation that some people, well, it doesn't have to be things that some people may not see that way, but that actually like not took a couple out, but something that's serious.
You know what came to mind? All right, this is like really messed up.
What?
I probably shouldn't even like mention it as an example. But, right, like Mike Pence has this really, really weird thing where he
The dinner thing?
Yes. That is so, I think it's strange.
That's because he's a sexual predator and he doesn't trust himself to not be around women because he will assault them because he's a horrible human being. But okay, yeah, say what I don't know if everyone knows this, but say what it is.
Yes.
This is
well,
insane.
can you say it? Because you knew exactly what I was talking about.
Mike Pence refuses to have meals with people of the opposite sex by himself without his spouse. So he will not have any meal with a woman if his wife is not there.
Yeah. And
that's his hard line.
That is his hard, rigid line.
Now, when it comes out that he's assaulted hundreds of women, let's not be surprised that he's like, but the dinner rule. Yeah. What happened to the dinner rule? But this is a hard, like he's very open about this. He does not have any meals without his wife there.
Yeah, as therapists, we're not, And
I know some women are like, how do I get that rule in my? But like, yeah, it's just so when he says that though, that makes me think there's something that was a lack, like a severing of trust, because we're more of an independent couple. Like we've been together for forever. So I am not like, if I can't see myself saying you can't have so trust is the biggest thing in a relationship. Mm-hmm. If you don't trust yourself to be with a woman by yourself, and if I don't trust you, there really is no relationship, because I'm not about to be around my husband 24/7. Mm-hmm. So if I can't trust you to be at a meal with a woman, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. Why does that even have to be a rule?
Right.
You shouldn't even feel comfortable saying that, because when he said that, I heard, oh, y'all have a terrible relationship.
But you know what though? And this is what I was gonna say, just so that my initial comment wasn't taken out of context. Like I was gonna say, as therapists, we're not supposed to judge, but we're but
we're not talking about our patients. He's not our patient.
No, he's not. And if he was, there would be things that we would understand about him that would put that in context, that would allow us to empathize more. But as a public figure, and his political views being what they are,
and the fact that I hate his soul, I legit don't even think he has a soul. I think he is like the manifestation of a dementor. That guy,
he's a strange dude.
He is so weird looking. Like I get chills every time. He is so pale as a person.
But
it's very odd.
So what I was going to say though is if that's his agreement with his spouse, right?
If it works, it works. I know.
Right. Like those are the rules
but as a
that govern their trust.
As a clinician, though, you know that means there's something wrong. No, you get that that's something wrong. Because as soon as you hear that, you're like, So my first question is, where did this rule stem from? Because when was it decided? Because there was some aspect of trust severed either in that woman's relationship with someone else, so she doesn't trust him,
that is
or
an
in this
assumption,
relationship.
Though, Raquel. Like as a clinician.
No, I'm going to generalize. There is no freaking way that nothing happened previously. Whether it's your exposure to someone, whether your mom cheated on your dad, whether you saw someone cheat on somebody, that you think it's okay, that you didn't think that this rule had to be created. There's trust was severed somewhere. I'm going to generalize because there's no way. There's no way, Justin. You can't say there's any way.
Maybe.
There's no way. There is no way.
I mean, I don't know Mike Pence. Like, from the outside as a public figure, I think he's a weird dude. Like, as a clinician, I would probably, if he were my patient, I would get to know him enough, hopefully, to be able to empathize and understand it from his worldview.
I get that. I get it. You're a clinician, doctor. You're great. You're wonderful. You know all these words. Tell me, though, that you legit think that someone comes into your practice, not even into your practice, an imaginary person. They tell you this rule. And you, with your psychoanalysis, don't try to get to the stem of why this rule started. Because that's what you like. You like to delve into that.
Yes, but what I'm saying is I don't know what the stem is.
But you know there's a stem, though. There's no way they just came up with this rule. That's what I'm saying.
But
all I'm saying is there is trust severed.
You're saying you know what the stem is. And
oh, my God. It's definitely severed trust.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, there's a stem, and I don't know what the stem is.
And I'm telling you, I'm giving you the answer to the test right now. It was severed trust. There's no,
all right,
Justin. There's no way.
All right, but using
that is an odd ass rule, dog. That's weird.
This is absolutely why it was like a bad idea to use him as an example. But I couldn't help. Like that is a strange rule. And
you know, there's no way
why do you want me to say that so bad?
Because I just want to be right. It really is just that I want to be right. I can be honest about that. Some things I just want to be right about. There's no way it wasn't.
Well, you might be. You might be.
No. I'm right.
Okay. No. So can we just use him as an example real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
As long as you acknowledge that I'm right. No, you don't have to. You're not gonna. You never do. You never. Even if I am right, you're never gonna say
You're right about a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But right, like if that is their agreement, right? If that is their agreement, then maybe trust can be built around your agreement. So
yeah, it can. If it works for them, it works for them. I'm just saying.
And your initial question was like, when it comes to affairs, right? Like that is a different process. First, you have to rebuild trust, and that was like for any boundary violation. So if Mike Pence and his wife have an agreement that he won't meet. Oh gosh, this is such a bad example. That he won't meet with another woman. Then if he were to
eat with another woman,
right?
It's crazy.
If he breaches that by actually meeting with another woman, then that is a boundary violation, and then you first work to build up trust. Now,
yeah, because that's the rule, right? Like, so even though I think it's insane, if I was a clinician, I'd just be like, well, I mean, you know the rules.
Yeah.
And we have to, like, you treat this as any, like, violation of trust, any kind of cheating aspect, because that's what you did, because you know the rule.
But, right, that notwithstanding, right, let's say, like, trust wasn't violated, but the couple is having a hard time communicating, getting along, there's lack of intimacy or decreased intimacy, whatever the case may be. Most of couples therapy is over and over and over and over and over again helping each partner realize that the things that they're responding to in time with one another go deeper beyond that moment, and helping them not agree. I don't care whether like the couple agrees, because it's not about agreement. You're two individual people. You will have your own subjective experience about what happens. It's like it's wild how like couples will come in and just talk about like, well, we have sex once a week, and another person was like, we have sex every 2 months. Like that happens all the time. They have disagreements about like how often they even have sex.
This isn't the same. Oh, I thought you were talking about two different couples.
No,
someone's confused. She's having sex. I don't know why I automatically went to the female, but she having sex with somebody once a week, because like that's.
But it happens.
I can see it happening though. Okay.
Right. So your subjective experience about like what's happening in the relationship, like that changes. Like, and it's going to be different between partners. So it's not so much about the truth. It's about you understanding what your partner feels and why.
So it's about your perception and your understanding of their perception.
Yes. And why they feel the way that they do. That includes both the relationship and things far beyond the relationship, which include like some of the things that we talked about, right? Earlier experiences with parents or family members or other significant relationships.
Previous bad relationship. But you don't have to, so just like to make this clear, because I don't want anyone to be confused. So you don't have to agree with like how they feel. You have to understand and take that in and be mindful of it and just be aware of it. Like, because you don't have to agree, because feelings aren't right or wrong, right? Because I think sometimes people think, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. I don't think that that's accurate, but it's not about that in a relationship, right? It's like me taking the time to hear what you're saying and understanding how you're feeling. I don't have to agree. And plus, feelings aren't right or wrong, but I don't have to.
It's not for you to agree with.
Yeah, it's not for you to agree with, right? Like, that's not your job to help them with.
It's for you to understand and empathize with.
Yeah.
And when you can empathize, then you can start to work on like agreeing a little bit more. So I mean, what do you think are some of the things that get in the way with doing just that, with like better understanding the other person? Because at the end of the day, relationships are built on intimacy and understanding and trust, like you said earlier. But there are obviously things that get in the way of that.
I would say, just going off of, so I've read about couples therapy. I've only done a couple of sessions, so I'm not as well versed in couples as you are. But going off of some of my issues would be ego. Like, my ego has gotten in the way of like early aspects of the relationship. And I think one of the things that help us progress so much as a couple is just realizing that my ego kind of has no place in the relationship. So sometimes I will, like, you know, in the beginning, not apologize when I know, like, it kind of just, even if I didn't agree with how they were feeling, just knowing that the person felt that way. So just trying to remove my ego in a relationship really helped me to like have a better relationship with my husband. And at this point, he was my boyfriend. But yeah, just ego is really hard to just accept it. Like, okay, just call the person, dude. Like, if you don't know if they wanted to hang out, ask them if they wanted to hang out. Like, it's just, I think ego gets in the way of a lot of things. Like, you don't want to call them back, or it's a waste, because at the end of the day, you're unhappy because you don't get to be with the person or see them. So get rid of it.
Yeah. Pride and ego, that's a big thing.
And
I
pride,
think well, yeah, it goes hand in hand. I mean, they're kind of like synonymous, but yeah, I think that's a huge thing, right? Also, like, when you're trying to do that process in couples therapy of helping one partner get to understand the other, it's especially hard to do because people are feeling hurt. People are feeling enraged and wronged.
You may have damaged a part of their ego or something that they haven't acknowledged in their unconscious, and they don't know why they're like lashing out like a wounded animal, but they are.
Right.
And that's even harder if they can't acknowledge it, right? Like, it's just you're lashing out, but we don't know why, but you are lashing out though.
And can't explain, why, either can't acknowledge that they're lashing out, or can't explain like the roots of why they're lashing out, like the reason for it.
Yeah, or the emotions behind it, because there are so many people who don't even understand how to express the emotions accurately. So it's just like, it's just like the perfect storm of like, we might have broken up and I don't know why the freak we did it, or we argued and I don't know why.
But the hardest thing, right, is like when you are legitimately hurt and you have just reasons to feel hurt, and also, but the task remains for you to, help your partner understand the reasons behind why you're hurt. So communicating to them in a way where you are owning your own feelings and your own sense of what's happening. So you're getting understanding on the things that you're hurt, but the other task is also to understand them. And you might still feel hurt while you're trying to understand them. And I think sometimes that's where ego gets in the way.
Because why am I going to take the time to understand you when I'm still hurting? Like, you want me to give you a Band-Aid and I got a gash in my arm. Yeah. It's like, I can't even look at like what's going on with you, because I think you're dealing with like a splinter and I feel like I have like a bullet wound. So like, how can I even look at like, we're both hurting.
And that understanding, right? That understanding of why they hurt increases empathy. And so those really harsh emotions become like softer. So the rage and anger becomes hurt and sadness. The frustration becomes more of like just an anxiety about losing the other person. At the end of the day, like, people want to be together, and people are together for a reason. And so what you do in couples therapy is like you really anchor yourself in like knowing that these two people are here because they want to work on it. And when it comes to like relationships and love, like, it's all about like working with each other. So because you both want the relationship. And that's an important thing to like keep in mind. Like, I think sometimes when people are hurt, they forget that the other person like does want the relationship. But it can be hard to keep that in mind, that person does want to be with you. And again, this is aside from like people who lie, or people who manipulate, or people who are like cheating, or people who are like breaching trust over and over and over again. I mean, two people who are having issues with communicating and connecting. At the basis of it, these are people that want to be together, but are really having trouble finding ways to understand each other.
Yeah, they're having a difficulty realizing that it's you and your partner against the problem instead of you against your partner.
Yeah, no, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, do you what do you think are like some of like the main like issues with couples, like aside from ego? Because I know for me, like communication's a big one.
Yeah, communication is a big one, and understanding each other's perspective goes hand in hand with that.
I think also like love languages, which we might need to like push to another episode.
Yep, we are going to push that to another episode, Dr. Hopkins.
I think we're going to wrap up soon.
Yeah. This isn't me being difficult. It's just we had a deal about like recording episodes, and we're both very wordy people, and every time I'm like, we can't do this in the length of time we have, Justin. Yes, we can. Yeah, and then we get there like, you're right.
Well, Raquel, I think
it wasn't enough time.
I'm always a little overambitious with our
and yet you still don't listen to me.
all time.
That's another reason. That's another relationship thing.
When people don't listen to each other.
And when you know, like I told you this was gonna happen, but then it happens, and I can't say I told you so, right? Because that would make me an asshole. But I did tell you so, though. But
was that
luckily, this is not a romantic relationship, so I told you so whenever the freak I want.
Well, was that a like pride thing that you needed to be right?
It is. I do have an issue with wanting to be right. Like that is a for real thing that I try to work on every day. It's a problem.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
We're in a field where we study so much, and we like kind of want to be in like, and when I'm like, I feel like this is gonna go the wrong way, but I just gotta rock with you, and then when it goes the wrong way, I kind of just suck it up. In relationships with my husband is the only person I have to do that with. I only have one man in this world where I have to be like a normal human being. Everybody else gets the asshole.
But speaking of like what you just said, right? Like that's like a really, really like cool thing that I think like most that people need to do more of, right? Like it's being able to have like a little bit of honesty with yourself about what are some of your vulnerabilities or sensitivities, and what are some of the things that you're imperfect about. We are all imperfect, as I said earlier. Like that is just a tragedy of human condition. Like we're imperfect creatures. Like we are, and so we have strengths and we have things that we're not so great about, and those not so great about things our partners have to live with, and maybe and it can be helpful to everyone if we're able to like own the things that we're not so great at, while also owning our feelings about those things, owning the things that we are upset, living out loud with what we desire and what we don't desire. Those kind of things can go a long way. Yeah,
love is just finding another person that you want to annoy for the rest of your life, and you're okay with being annoyed by for the rest of your life.
Yes, I
and willing to work it out. Because in all honesty,
it's not just annoying. There's
other great things, but when it comes down to like long relationships and dealing with shit, like at the end of the day, you're gonna have to get over the fact that he don't fold towels the way you do, or you're gonna have to get over the fact that she leaves the drawers open. Like it's just. You just have to get over it, because it's like the main reason why I'm like, okay, I'll swallow my ego and deal with that for my husband is because that's the person I want to be with for the rest of my life. Like this is my person, so I'll do it for that person. But it takes a lot of energy for that person. That's why I can't do it for other people, because it's like I don't want to be a human for everybody. I'm a human for my husband. I don't have to. No.
Yeah.
Which like
in other
makes
words,
me sound like a great clinician, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, you put on your clinician hat.
And that hat is way easier than like not normal relationships, because we're trained in it. Like like I'm trained in that. But like regular relationships, I mean, there's no real training for having to deal with like crazy exes and stuff like that. Like there's no training in the world. We can read all the books and just be like, what the
I think the only thing there is self-awareness. Like that is the only thing you have at your disposal, I think, with navigating relationships, is your own honesty and truth, and knowing yourself well enough to know what it is that you're experiencing and being able to communicate that to the other person.
Yeah, I think our training helps with that. I feel like I'm way more aware. Like I'm very open with being aware of like what my faults are. Like I have I have no issues acknowledging my faults at all. But sometimes I'm like, I'm working on it. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not. Like the fact that I'm loud and I talk fast. I know it's a thing. I'm not changing it.
Yeah. And you're like, but you're also okay with that.
Yeah. And when they say that, they're like, oh, like when they say the intimidating thing, I was like, yep, gotten that before.
Yeah. I do think, you really hit the nail on the head. I feel like I do think every single couple has to choose the type of argument that they're going to have for the rest of their lives.
I feel like couples only have 3 arguments. They have the same 3 arguments.
Ooh, go for it.
Like, no, they might be different for different people, but I feel like they feel like they're arguing about different things, and it's not. It's like, oh, I don't feel like I'm being listened to. And it could be because you didn't turn this off, you didn't do this, we didn't have a date, I told you I wanted to do this, but the argument is listening.
Listening. What else? There was another one?
Sex is probably always an argument.
Sure. And money, I think.
Money, yeah.
Because money is also about control and the power dynamics of your
so
relationship.
Maybe let's just say control then. Because I feel like the control thing is something that I've always struggled with. And, you know, like strong black woman. And it's just like, chill out. And because I'm with a Southern man. I'm with a Southern man. So it's like, there's only so much control. Like I think some aspect of control in my relationship was letting go of control and allowing someone like, because I feel like if you have issues with control, it's kind of like a trust issue. You don't trust the person to handle it. So you feel like you have to do all of it. So a good aspect of control is feeling comfortable and trustful and trusting in the other person to control the situation for you.
Wow.
But that was my struggle, that other people may really just want control. But I do think that the control thing is a trust, because deep down it's like, I have to do this or you're not going to do it right. So if you trust your partner to do it right, you can let go of some of the control because they got it.
Yeah. But you'd have to like be willing to take the risk of trusting, being vulnerable, handing it over, letting it go. And that partner would then have to make good on that trust by following through.
Yeah. And so you can't like be pissed the one time they dropped the ball. Like, come on.
All right. So, I really think there's so much more to say about this. Well, why don't we do a part 2?
Yes. And I feel like a good thing to talk about would be like hallmarks of like positive relationships and then also toxic
like you were
relationships.
Saying earlier. Yeah.
And then we might be able to put in some more like attachment style and love relationship stuff.
Yeah. And I think like love languages would be a good thing. I mean, we're going to make this kind of a series for you guys. And,
a relationship series.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about family and friends too, because those relationships be messing us up as well.
So
those could be toxic.
More to come. Thank you all so much for listening.
Yep.
We want to reiterate, we're going to be at DC Podfest November 9th talking about how to talk about people who are different from you. We are so excited. We look forward to sharing some graphics with you guys about that event. So stay tuned for that on our Instagram, The Black Unconscious, our website, theblackunconscious.com. And if you guys have questions, again, please use that Ask Us section of our website or shoot us an email at theblackunconscious@gmail.com.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.